Greetings, Ventures. This is Lorne, your guild advisor, with a light novel review and spoiler discussion for bottom tier character Tomozaki Volume 6.5. I do apologize for not getting this one out earlier, but hey, at least it's out before Volume 7 releases, all the way in December. This video will comprise of a quick general review of the novel, followed by a more intensive spoiler discussion. As always, the author of the light novel series is Yukiyaku Sensei, with illustrations being provided by Fly Sensei, and this volume, like the past ones, was translated by Winifred Bird, and as always, it is published by Yen Press under their Yen On imprint. Now, to start off with my general impressions of the novel, of course, because this novel is a 0.5 novel, a short story collection, I came in with a mindset knowing that we're not going to have much answers, much story progression from where we left off in Volume 6. That cliffhanger where Mimimi confesses to Tomozaki, almost leaving him in a type of personal crisis because of his own poor self-evaluation of himself. And of course, Mizusawa helps kind of snap him back together, and we're left with Tomozaki needing to make a decision about Mimimi's confession. And in that sense, it is slightly frustrating that we're getting this short story collection before Volume 7 because of that cliffhanger. But the author does acknowledge that in the afterword, and it's alleviated by the fact that the author did state that these are stories he wanted to write. And for what it's worth, I, a reader of this series, generally like pretty much all the characters in this series. A nice change of pace to see these other characters get into their minds and see what they think. We actually get first-person perspectives from Fuka and Mimimi, and the reason why I like that the first-person perspective was used for Fuka and Mimimi is because first-person perspective allows the author to express the stories of these two characters from those two characters' perspectives. We get to see the types of words they use, the tone that they use to tell the story. So instead of a third-person perspective where you're just kind of seeing like the matter-of-fact narrators just saying what these characters are thinking, the characters are saying what they are thinking with their own words, and you get to pick up on things that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise with a third-person narrator. And the first-person perspective is a part of the reason why I like the Tomozaki series so much, is because I enjoy Tomozaki's first-person account of the story, because you can see he changes how he describes things depending on the situation. As I mentioned before in previous reviews and discussions, he uses very different language whenever he's describing Fuka from the other characters, and you would not necessarily get that if it was a third-person story. So with that being said, I did enjoy having the first-person perspectives for characters like Fuka and Mimimi in this story. And besides just Fuka and Mimimi, we got to see short stories involving characters like Hinami, Mizusawa, and Yuzu, and I did enjoy those stories as well. Hinami's was very interesting because we've always been wanting to know like what made Hinami Hinami, wanting to know more about her past, and we do get a bit of that in this short story collection with Volume 6.5, but it's not necessarily what we wanted. But I think Yukiyaku Sensei is saving like the big Hinami origins for an actual like main installment, though even though this is a side volume, I would absolutely recommend reading this volume before reading Volume 7. I don't think this is something you should just skip simply because it's a short story collection, because again, you do get to see some perspectives of these characters in relation to Volume 6 as well, particularly Mimimi. So I would say that's kind of important to know before diving into Volume 7. So with that being said, I did enjoy Volume 6.5 overall. It's just slightly disappointing that it just means we're waiting even longer for Volume 7, but I did like the expansion on seeing the perspectives of other characters and building them up, because I do enjoy these characters. If I didn't like the characters as much as I do, this would probably be a very disappointing light novel, but I generally like all the characters, or I should say most of the characters in this series, so it was a joy to see the stories of other characters besides Tomozaki in this one. And that concludes my general impressions of Volume 6.5. And now I'm going to be diving into spoiler territory and discussing the actual contents of the novel itself in specific. So if you have not read the novel in its entirety quite yet, I'd advise to wait to watch this part of the video. But thank you for checking it out. Anyway, we're going to cover each little side story one by one, because that's probably the easiest way to go about this. And the first short story is about, of course, the person on the cover of the book, middle school Hinami. And this is told in a third-person perspective, so we're not necessarily getting a first-person account like Fuka or Miyumi, like I mentioned in the general impressions. But again, it is still very interesting. Now, of course, we're not getting the full origins of what made Hinami have her mindset of aiming towards perfection. Rather, we see her starting to finalize her perfect persona in this short story in her middle school days. And regarding her relationship with the vice president of the basketball team, I thought it was very immature of Hinami. She makes me uncomfortable with her mindset, and I think I've said that before in previous volumes. Hinami is just such an interesting character because she does make me uncomfortable with her mindset. Like, this is middle school Hinami, and she kind of thinks ill later on about the vice president, the person she ends up dating, because she believes that her boyfriend's the vice president of the basketball team. She believes that he thinks part of his worth is based on the fact that Hinami is his girlfriend. She even goes as far as to call Hatori's relationship with her almost being borderline codependency on his part, which I think is rather extreme wording for someone in middle school to be using. Which is why I say that Hinami just makes me uncomfortable, but I think it's a good uncomfortable because it makes Hinami a more interesting character because she has these types of thoughts at such a young age, and it just makes you wonder what made her like this. Again, we don't get that origin to Hinami, like what made her strive towards perfection, what made her have this state of mind, but you do see her state of mind being like this in middle school, how she hates how the girls who confronted her pretty much made her have to compromise on being able to play in the basketball tournaments. Like she hated that. She vows that she'll get what she wants through hard work and not just blaming other people for their own shortcomings. Like the girls simply just weren't good enough, or most of them weren't good enough to make that starting role like Hinami would have been able to had she not turned down the role to appease these girls that were jealous of Hinami's position on the team and her relationship with the vice president. And again, regarding her relationship with Hatori, I did find it weird how she was mad at Hatori for the quote-unquote codependency, when the reason she went out with Hatori was simply just to gain experience because she was never in a relationship before. So she was just kind of using him. It wasn't really based on emotion, her dating him in the first place. And that's why I prefer Tomozaki's idealism of romance as opposed to whatever Hinami is trying to do here. But at the end of that short story, we do get that quote by her where she says that she would only date someone if they could beat her at something. And of course, the reader would automatically think of Tomozaki being able to beat her at Arafami. So who knows if that's foreshadowing or not. We all know how I feel about the Fuka and Tomozaki ship and how I support that. So we'll see what becomes of this, if that's foreshadowing or not. But that was a tiny dip into Hinami's past, and hopefully we get to learn even more about it and what made her start her journey into trying to achieve perfection in the first place. And then we get a tiny short intermission with a little shopping trip between Hinami and Tomozaki at the Omiya Station strip mall. It's accompanied by a really cool illustration done by Fly. Like, Tomozaki looks awesome here. Like, he's clearly not the same person that we started with in Volume 1. He looks cool, more stylish than I am, I'll say that. There's not much happening in this short story besides Hinami kind of stating that Tomozaki is starting to develop a type of fashion sense. But other than that, it was pretty much just a short intermission between stories where we get to see Tomozaki's point of view just for a tiny little bit, reminding us that, hey, this is Tomozaki's story, but you won't really be seeing him for the rest of this, at least his first-person perspective. And then we get into a cute little expansion into Volume 3, Girls Talk, with Yuzu, Mimimi, and Hinami. I made a note here that I was proud that Yuzu was my second favorite girl of the cast because she likes Strawberry Pocky, because I like Strawberry Pocky. And you get to see a bit of Mimimi's thoughts here, how she's surprised that Yuzu can speak so matter-of-factly about love. And we see Miyumi's own shortcomings and her anxiety about love later on in this short story collection. And then they start talking about which of the guys on the barbecue trip that they would think would be a potential romantic interest. And then Hinami says Tomozaki and Misuzawa. And then when Hinami talks about Misuzawa, she says that he's the easiest for her to talk to. And then I just went, yeah, I don't buy that at all. Because you only show your real self to Tomozaki, but of course she can't reveal that to Miyumi or Yuzu. And I really like that Yuzu compliments Tomozaki here. I just really enjoy Yuzu and Tomozaki's platonic relationship. Like, there doesn't have to be romance involved. I like how they both support each other. And then Miyumi, of course, kind of feels prideful that Tomozaki's being praised because he helped her out during the student council election. And poor Take, he doesn't... Yaku-sensei doesn't miss a chance to slam Take, where she has Miyumi say, like, I'll guess anyone other than Take is fine. Poor Take. And then, of course, we get into Fuka's short story. And one that I was very excited to see was actually here. I got super excited when I saw that it was going to be a first-person perspective, so we get to see how Fuka talks. And it's interesting because she's using those colorful descriptors, like how when Tomozaki will talk about Fuka, how he'll use colorful language, and Fuka just kind of does the same thing in general. And we get to see a younger Fuka and how she kind of lived her life. And for the most part, she really just kept to herself. We get to see her discover the library, and it was originally used as an escape, which is kind of a coincidence because that was what Tomozaki kind of used the library for, a place to just be alone and concentrate on other things. So it's interesting that both Tomozaki and Fuka, they didn't originally go into the library like as a place to read books, but eventually that's exactly what happened. They ended up enjoying reading and reading together. We see that reading actually saved Fuka in a way. It allowed her to calm down and find worlds that she actually enjoyed, because we know that Fuka doesn't really see the world in color. But then when she reads books, she gets introduced to worlds of color, worlds that she enjoys being in. And again, Fly Sensei, thank you for these cute Fuka illustrations. I very much enjoy them. This is also where Fuka first discovers Andy books, and she like never looks back after this. And we get to see that she's crying because of one of the books that she's reading, and she kind of relates to a character that's struggling to make friends, and then that character all of a sudden starts to make friends, and she tries to find inspiration in that. She makes friends with the librarian, one of the teachers at the school, and Fuka tries her hand into mingling, and it does not go well. I felt really, really bad for Fuka. That finger game that the girls were playing, that was just not the best thing to try and mingle into, and I felt really bad for Fuka because that probably just made her wary of trying anything like that again. So she ends up just making friends with the librarian, but she does have to graduate eventually. And I found it really sad when she said that now that she knows what having a friend was like, it was harder for her to be alone again after she graduated. And then that's when she noticed Tomozaki in high school reading an Andy book. Well, he wasn't really reading it, we know that from volume 1. And then something cool that was done with this short story was seeing those diary entries that Fuka had, and we got to see her perspective on her encounters with Tomozaki, including the whole smiling incident, which I thought was really funny. And we got to see how nervous Fuka was during all of this. And we don't get to see what Fuka like thinks of Tomozaki romantically. She's just amazed at Tomozaki's progress in seeing a person who she thought wouldn't necessarily mingle with others, and then how all of a sudden Tomozaki is talking to people like Hinami, and she's started to have inspiration in that. And we got to see her entry about her first encounter with Tomozaki in the library, and she's happy that she did talk to him, and then the rest is kind of history. And unlike Miyumi's stories later on, we don't know how Fuka feels about Tomozaki, possibly in a romantic sense. And I think it's a good thing that there's no clear answer on that in the story, because that just leaves more suspense on what Tomozaki's decision in Volume 7 could lead up to. And then we get a short story about Yuzu. I thought overall it was really cute. You get to see another side to Erika. We kind of get a negative opinion about Erika because of what happened in Volume 4 and 5, but you do see that Erika is a good friend to her friends for the most part, and how she's saying that it's just weird trying to avoid talking about Shuji just because Erika likes her too. So even though it may be uncomfortable for Erika to talk about Yuzu's relationship with Nakamura, she'd rather talk about it than have this weird silent invisible war, like this invisible taboo, making it awkward amongst their friend group. And of course, we get the reveal that Nakamura was never actually cheating on Yuzu and seeing another girl. He was just looking for a birthday present. And I kind of suspect that Erika knew exactly what was going on because, again, it's mentioned that Erika is a good friend, so she probably did know that Yuzu's birthday was coming up. And that's why Yaku-sensei was being very sneaky in how he was wording Erika's stuff, because it says, like, Erika mentions that maybe Yuzu might not want to know, and it's because a birthday should be a surprise, right? And over the course of the series, my opinion of Nakamura has gone up, and so I didn't think he was the type of person that would cheat on Yuzu. And because Mizusawa was involved in this, I don't think that Mizusawa would let Nakamura cheat on Yuzu, because we already saw how Mizusawa was treating the situation with Tomozaki and how Miyumi confessed to him, and how Mizusawa said that Tomozaki needs to come up with some type of answer to respect Miyumi's confession. So even though Mizusawa is kind of a playboy, he does have some morals when it comes to matters of like serious relationships. And then we get to the first Miyumi stories, and we get quite a lot of focus on Miyumi in these short stories, and that makes sense because of what just happened in Volume 6. But we really get to see how Miyumi is still feeling like she's lacking something that everyone else has, like she's not growing as fast as everyone else, and she always has that inner anxiety to her, how she goes with the flow, but inside she feels like she's just not enough, like how she's always fitting in second. So it was really cool to see that at the end of this first short story, that she found something that she was passionate about, even though she joined track initially because Hinami did, how she found out she generally enjoys running, and at the very end, she actually beats Hinami at the race, and it's just good to see Miyumi win at something, and hopefully Hinami didn't, like, you know, let her win. Hopefully that's a genuine win for Miyumi. So that's something that Miyumi can hold her head high about, that she actually beat Hinami at a race. And I guess if you're a big Miyumi fan, you got to see a little ecchi illustration in that short story as well. And we also got a quick little first-person perspective from Miyumi of the hot pot encounter with Tomozaki in Volume 6. And it's kind of the same thing that we read in Volume 6, where Miyumi thinks that she has Tomozaki flustered, and then he just powers through and then makes Miyumi all embarrassed, which was really funny to see her side of the story with that. But that was just a quick little thing. And then we get a Mizusawa story. And you know how Mizusawa is one of my favorite characters, and he just pretty much solidifies himself as a Chad, as always. And we also get a small little Gumi cameo as well. I enjoy her character, how she's just laid back, low energy. Situations where you think that she would be nervous, she just kind of goes with it. But again, Mizusawa, all dressed up, working at a bar, and he's just a smooth operator. So this was just a enjoyable chapter to read, how Mizusawa is kind of just OP when it comes to establishing relationships with girls. I mean, just look at this illustration. Mizusawa is just like the definition of smooth operator, of Casanova, if you will. And he immediately calls these two girls by their first name, which is something you don't normally see happen in Japan. He has his own business card for this bar where he just occasionally works at, and it has his line ID. He's OP. But the interesting thing is at the very end, where the boss of the bar compliments him and asks if he would ever want a girlfriend. And then we get to see, of course, Mizusawa saying that there is a girl he's in love with. We know that to be Hinami. He's not sure how he could win her heart. And the interesting line is, he's not sure how deep her heart even went, which is kind of a fair line because Hinami is a very complicated character. It's like, how much does she place on emotional value? We don't quite know. And he says he'll wait for her. He's not the type to chase someone down. So I'm curious to see how that's gonna go for him. And then of course the very last short story is about Miyumi again. The scene right after she confesses to Tomozaki and then runs away. And it was just really cute reading how Miyumi reacted to all this, how she didn't mean to confess like that, she just kind of blurted it out. And then she's freaking out at home, like going all over Tomozaki's social pages that he's not updating, how she's wondering if she should just turn her phone off. Like, it was really cute seeing Miyumi like that, and then she admits that she would always like him, so it was kind of pointless to try and just look away from her feelings. And this is kind of a scary situation for her, because it's always kind of a mess when you make friends with someone and then you realize you have romantic feelings towards them, but you're scared that if you do confess those feelings, that if you get rejected, then you damage the relationship and it's just not the same anymore. And that's that same fear that Miyumi has right now. If my personal ship goes through, like Tomozaki rejecting Miyumi and then being honest with his feelings, because I'm pretty sure most of the signs point to him having affections for Fuka. But if that's the case, it's going to be a bad day for Miyumi. Thank God she wanted something in this short story. She won that race against Hinami, but man, it's going to be a really sad scene if Tomozaki does end up rejecting Miyumi like I think will happen. But we'll see what happens. But that's where the short story collection ends. Pretty much the same point of where Volume 6 ended proper. And now we're waiting for Volume 7. And that comes out on December 14th, 2021. So pretty much the end of this year. And ironically, it's kind of perfect timing in the sense because it's around the same time that the novel takes place. But man, it really has been a painful wait since Volume 6 came out in March, and we've been having this cliffhanger going all the way into December, about like 9 months. So we're going to see that conclusion in Volume 7, hopefully. And we'll continue the Tomozaki story from there. But I can't wait for it. What did you guys think about this short story collection? Like, I liked it overall, but again, it's just disappointing not getting to continue off from where we left from on that cliffhanger with Volume 6. But we're getting there at the end of the year, and that'll be exciting when it does come. I'm super excited for it. I think I've shown this off in a Twitter post before, but I actually have Volume 7 imported from Japan, the limited edition one with Fuka on the front, because I just had to have it. Yen Press doesn't normally do limited edition covers like Japan does, where they have alternate artwork, so I had to get it because Fuka's on the front of that. And you'll be getting a Gumi cover for the regular edition of Volume 7 when it comes out in December. And also, in case you didn't already know, Yen Press recently licensed the manga spin-off of the Tomozaki series about Mimimi called Minami Nanami Wants to Shine. So that's really exciting. It's going to come out in February 2022. So if you're a big fan of Mimimi, you got some nice content coming along. And just for Tomozaki fans in general, we're getting more Tomozaki stuff. But yeah, tell me what you guys think about the novel. Did you have a particular short story that you liked in this collection? Was there a particular character you wanted to know even more about? Curious on what you guys think about the novel. But I'll see you guys next time for Volume 7 when it releases in December. So anyway, thank you for watching this review and spoiler discussion for Bottom Tier Character Tomozaki Volume 6.5. If you want to see more videos like this, click the like on the video, sub to the channel, and follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. And as always, this is Thorn, your guild advisor, signing out.